It's wonderful to welcome Paige Rutledge, the wonderful country musician from Guelph, Ontario, to this program. The
Well,
last
thank you so
conversation
much.
that, yeah, the last conversation that we had was like a year ago, and now
Yeah.
to celebrate her new music, her new single, "Used to This," I'd like to welcome her to the program once again.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me back. Yeah, I guess it was. I was actually, just as you said that, I guess it was. I remember the last time we did this, I was at the cottage and I
Mhm.
was, yeah, we were talking about the cottage for a while. So it probably was like this time around a year ago because like we're getting into summer mode. And so, yeah, wow, time flies. I didn't
Yes,
realize
yes, it does.
time really flies.
Yes, and again, it's always nice to speak to you. So you recently went to a vacation in Bahamas, and
Yeah,
as I'm informed, a very long-awaited vacation. So
very
how was it?
long. It was wonderful. So it was just my parents' 29th wedding anniversary. And so that was on the Monday. It was actually the day that we arrived was their anniversary. And they've gone to the Bahamas quite a few times and we've done a family trip there. This was our second time going. And just because that's where they went on their honeymoon. And so, with everyone's schedules being so busy, family time is not, um, you know, as common I guess, anymore. And I'm always doing something, or, someone's off doing whatever. And so it was nice to actually just like stop everything for 5 days and be together as a family, which hasn't happened in a very long time. And so it was very nice. It was a nice family trip to the Bahamas to celebrate my parents' wedding anniversary.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So earlier this month, I went to Thessaloniki, which is a city in northern Greece. So it
Oh,
was a
cool.
vacation too.
Wow.
And yeah, it was plenty of sun and plenty of good cheap street food. And
Yeah.
I managed to get some color on my I guess yeah, skin, my
A
complexion.
nice tan. Yeah.
So I suppose in Bahamas, I'm sure you get that plenty too, like the sea and the sun, and of course some color on yourself.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely spent a lot. The weather was beautiful. I couldn't believe it. So I think out of all the days we were there Monday to Friday, so it was just like a short kind of 5 day thing. And it only rained one evening for like a couple hours. And it was like just like a nice, like, when you're on the islands and the rainstorm just kind of comes through. It was one of those. But it was still kind of beautiful because there was rainbows over the ocean. And I was like,
Mhm.
it's just so nice. It's nice every so often to do like a change of pace and just kind of get away, sit on a beach, and you don't realize how important that actually is until you're like in the moment in full vacation mode. And yeah, it was gorgeous. No complaints, but also happy to be back home and getting into everything and getting into summer. Summer's my favorite time of year and it's a busy summer and so it was a nice kind of like break, I guess, before the craziness starts until like October now.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I understand that for musicians, especially
Yeah,
indie musicians like
busy
yourself,
time.
yeah, summer is a busy time. But for
Yeah,
me, who's going to school, summer is actually our break. So it's
totally. Yeah.
somewhat the
I know
opposite.
it's weird how the life like it flip flops, right? Because I remember feeling that same way before,
Hmm.
like starting to travel for playing shows and stuff like that. Like summer was like vacation mode and like spending all the time at the cottage, which I still try to do as much as I can. But now summer has this like different excitement to me because I feel like when you're in school or doing all those things, summer is exciting because it's like the off time. And I never thought that in my life I would have that flip where summer has become the busiest time, but it's exciting in a different way. Like they both summer's just great. People that don't like summer, I don't know. It's a good time for everybody. Everyone's in the sun, they're happy. It's good.
So remind me again, did you start making music after you graduated from university, or did that overlap?
There was an overlap. So I actually released my like first, oh gosh, we go like way back. So wrote my first song when I was 10 or 11. But the very first time like I actually recorded and released something was when I was 16 and put out stuff like, kind of during high school and learned a lot about that. But I graduated when COVID started. So there was that kind of overlap of, finishing up a chapter of your life and like graduating school and, like really, really taking that step to do music full time and like step into kind of that world. I had released stuff previously, but it was like really about to like take that full step. And then obviously the world said no, and you're going to stay inside for a little bit. So that was when my cousin and I built a studio at our cottage and we kind of transformed. And so all of the releases since Take Me Back to Tiki are like kind of a different side of Paige, but I had released stuff previously to like in high school. I guess I was so little. You learn a lot. They're not on the internet anymore for good reason. I've listened back to them a few times and I'm like, oh God, when you're 16, it's a lot different.
Oh yeah. I know that I did some early podcast episodes, and before that some radio broadcasts too.
Nice,
I think
yeah.
I'm much more glad that those radio broadcasts are no longer
Yeah.
no longer available, because
Yeah.
I didn't think I know what I was doing in that one. And I think when you
No.
listen to my first like 20 podcast episodes, I didn't know what I was doing in there either.
You gotta learn. And there is a video, it's still up on YouTube. This was the first song that I just said, like, oh, I wrote my first song like 10 or 11. And that song is up. I sang it at my vocal recital when I was that little, and it's not under my my YouTube channel. It's under like the music school that I was taking lessons from at that time. They had it posted, and it's me singing my very first like original song ever. And as you can imagine, like what does a 10-year-old have to sing about? So it's pretty entertaining. It's called Just Let It Rain, and all of my like close friends still have that YouTube link and always joke that they're gonna play it at my wedding one day. And so that one's never going anywhere. But it's okay. But it's you're right. It's funny to look back sometimes. And I mean, I guess like and kind of like in that sense too, it's nice. You learn from all of those things that you've released and things where you're like, ooh, ooh. But it's good. It's all part of the process and kind of like that 2 feet in mentality and learning as you grow. And then it's also kind of cool to see how far you've come when you look back at those things and you're like, thank goodness we've come so far.
Yes, and I'm sure you would find a lot more topics and subjects to write songs about.
Very much so. Yes, I've definitely lived a little bit more life and experiences since I started writing songs. And I think that's a very important thing to do. And I really, really try like every opportunity I have or like anything that comes up or just experience wise. Like I think being a songwriter and like wanting to write about life, like you have to go and like fully experience life and just kind of be open to like relationships and meeting people and listening to people's stories. And you learn a lot about yourself and you learn a lot about other people, and all of that kind of combined together creates a lot of inspiration.
Mhm. Yes, and what would be the story and inspiration behind Used to This?
Ah, that was a good segue. Very nice. um, Used to this. So I wrote this song. I was on a writing trip in Nashville, and it was kind of a little bit of a spontaneous write. And I think that's like there's something about like a few of my songs I have released have come from spontaneous writes. And actually, I have another one coming out later this year that is like again, like it was a planned write, but it also was like kind of spontaneous because we brought some other people into the room that weren't going to write with us. But for use of this, I I guess, oh my gosh, I'm like, what year was this? This was February of 2022, I guess. It must have been, maybe it was 2023. I don't know. The years are blended together, but it was February. I know that for a fact. And my co-writer on Drinking Alone, which was a song that I've put out a while ago, Jack and I were talking, and he's like, let's like write, like my buddy Deegan's in town. He's a songwriter he's back home in Connecticut. And he's like, oh, like let's just write. And then we brought in another one of Jack's friends, Joe. So all of a sudden, like it was myself with these three like male songwriters in the room, and I went in, and again, like it was super spontaneous. So I have a list of ideas in my phone always, but I hadn't really like thought anything out. I usually go in with like 2 or 3 ideas to kind of pitch. And with this one, I was like, oh my gosh, I've never written with like so many boys in a room. And I was like, I hope they want to write one of my like girl power breakup songs. Cause I was like, that's what I want to write today. And so I was kind of going through those ideas, and I had just written, or I guess I had just kind of like around that time written Ain't That Bad, which I put out almost, oh my gosh, almost 2 years ago now, I guess. And I kind of like had this idea where I was like, it was like a sister song, almost to Ain't That Bad, just because I was, when I released that, or when I was writing that, and like, sorry, 'cause I hadn't released it yet when I written this, but when I sent it off to my friends, they were like, there's such a message behind this. Like, this is such a universal feeling for girls and like just people in general, but like going through a break of that, like empowerment. And I was like, you know what? I think that like we can like kind of expand on this idea a little bit. So I went in and I didn't really have any idea like behind Used to This, except for I was like, I just want to write like a single girl empowerment anthem. And the boys were like, okay, let's do it. And so that's how we kind of came up with Used to This. And it was a different writing process because I remember we kind of started with like the little guitar hook that was happening and we kind of just started spitballing ideas and didn't have like too much behind it, and then it kind of grew into what it is, and now now it's out into the world. So it was definitely a unique and different writing process than what I had done before. But yeah, no, my favorite part was going into like the room full of boys and being like, so we're gonna write a single girl power anthem, and like here we go. And so it's really fun when those kind of ideas happen and everyone just rolls with it, and you get something that you're super excited and proud about, and now it's out into the world. And so it's fun. This one was a long time coming too, and we sat on it for a little bit, revisited it a few times, and so I'm very happy to have it out.
Oh yeah, and it's a wonderful song. It's
Thank
very
you.
bubbly and optimistic, as you put it,
Yeah,
single ladies anthem.
totally. And yeah, I just think, what, there's something so fun, especially going into summer and like, I don't know, like I love a good summer anthem with like, and the melodies are very like, the verses are quite wordy. There's a lot of words in the verses, but the chorus is very like an open melody, and there's a lot like of just like flowing and like sing along kind of moments. And so it just feels like a nice like driving in your car, windows down, like music up. Like that's kind of what I envisioned when we were producing and like doing all of that for this song. I was like, this is what like I want this feel to have. And lyrically, it is like we tried to really capture that empowerment or empowering feeling of like finding yourself again, moving on, because it sometimes takes some time after you end a relationship with somebody or you go through whatever to find who you are again. And so like that was really important to me, that like instrument wise and like music, like musically was reflected in the lyrics. And so I think Matt Cable, my producer, had a lot of really fantastic ideas and like helped me run with that vision. So it was just a good team putting together this one.
Of course, Used to This is your first release single in this year of 2024, and as you
Yeah,
alluded to, it's not going to be your last.
it's
Um,
not.
yeah, I would also like to bring up, I believe your last single released in 2023, which I also enjoyed listening to, The Worst Thing, because
Yes,
you made a
yeah.
music video of that one too,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah.
gorgeous. To what extent is the worst thing relates to Used to This? Because I hear it as a piano ballad, a melancholy, I
Totally.
suppose, fall anthem about the subject of breaking up. So
Yeah.
yeah, tell me more about it.
So it's funny that you say that, like, how do they relate to each other? Because yes, so I do have more music coming out this year. And I've mentioned it a few times, but I have an EP coming out in the fall, and The Worst Thing and Used to This are on it. So yes, like they're very contrasting to one another in the sense of like, The Worst Thing is a really sad and heartbreaking part of kind of a breakup. And then Used to This is that like finding yourself again, like kind of the opposite side of the spectrum of being like, I went through all of this, but like here we are. And both songs mean so much to me for so many different reasons. But they are gonna be like, they're gonna be on the EP together. So it kind of like, if that gives like an idea of what the EP is about, like it does kind of fall under like we all love a good country breakup song. So they kind of both fall on like those two different sides of the spectrum, and both are going to be on the EP in it's going to be September. But and so there's two other songs as well that are going to be on that. But yeah, yeah, the worst thing is we did the piano ballad version, like we called it the sad girl version when we were doing that too, because when we were producing the worst thing, and um kind of that same idea where like I know I just said this for Used to This, but like I said, I like to sing songs in my car. That's like my standard of like, what level are we gonna make this song? And I wanted that again for The Worst Thing, but kind of in the different sense of like not in the middle of summer with your windows down screaming it. I was like, this is the song like you drive to and you cry to, because we all love like a good, breakup song that you can scream. And then it was actually my producer, Matt, it was his idea. And he's like, what if we did like a sad girl version? And I was like, yeah, like we might as well try it. And I wrote the song, but as we were going through and we were like singing along, we were doing some pre-production stuff. I was listening to how sad the song got. And I was like, oh my God, who hurt me? I was like, who did this? But yeah, so no, they relate to each other in the sense of, they couldn't be more opposite on the spectrum, but they're part of the same project. So I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, and I'm excited about the EP too. And of
Yeah,
course, you're welcome on the show when the EP comes out. We're gonna
thank
expect it.
you. I would love to.
Oh yeah, and so what do we know about the EP at this point in time?
Yeah, I'm not a very good secret keeper, and I didn't even realize this, but used to this, so my friend Celine, she had come to the Bahamas with my family, and Celine and I actually became friends because she interviewed me because she has a country podcast here in Canada. And we were walking around like when the song had come out, we sat out on the balcony, we listened to it together, and she looked at me and she's like, "What number like single is this?" And I was like, "I have no clue." I was like, "What?" So I was going through and I was like, "I've released 9 singles now. This is the ninth single since 2020," which is kind of like crazy to think about in a sense. And with the EP now, it feels like it's not all 9 singles are on it. It's just gonna be, I feel like Ain't That Bad kind of started it, and but like, like kind of everything leading up to it. Ain't That Bad was the moment where I was like, I need to do something that's like a collection and something that like, kind of pieces together like this era of my life and like era of my writing. And so the EP, it's gonna have 2 new songs, but it's gonna include The Worst Thing and Used to This. Not me forgetting already my songs, but the other 2 are new ones. But it's kind of this, it feels almost like everything I've worked up to has been like single, 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 single. And now it's nice to have a collection of works. And when I was writing for this, I knew an EP was something that I wanted to do. And, it's really exciting. It's almost like bittersweet in its own way because we wrote so specifically for this project. And I like kind of went in with that general theme of like breakups and, like the different spectrum, like the different sides of a breakup. And, like you don't just have to be sad. Like there's different ways of writing breakup songs in country music. And so like having that as a collection is going to be very like, I guess I'm like kind of giving it away because I gotta say I'm not very good at keeping secrets, but it's like a breakup collection. I won't give away the title yet, even though I'm pretty sure most people know it. If they've said, I've only ever said it live though. So I'm like, if they don't record it, then like they won't remember. So it's okay. But it's a collection kind of like different breakup songs over, I guess, the span of what I've been writing about the last couple years. So it almost feels like not like a chapter closed, but like an era closed. And when I've been writing this year, I've been writing, thinking of what's going to come out already in 2025, which is like in a new era kind of sense. So yeah, it's like a bittersweet feeling. I'm just a sentimental person too. I'm very sensitive. So I'm like, oh my God, all my song babies, like it feels like a chapter closed, but it's also really exciting to have a like collection of work. And even the songs that aren't included, like Ain't That Bad, or Broken Record, like some of my older ones still kind of fit the themes of what is happening on this EP. So they all still kind of feel like they have a little piece of everything I've released leading up to it.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, I'm burning with anticipation as we speak.
Me too, actually. I'm like, get the stress off. No, it's fine. It's fun. It's a lot. It's a good kind of stress. Releasing music is a stressful but exciting process, and every release feels different, and you learn so much from each release before, but it's always, I just always have this massive fear, I don't know why, of like leading up to the day of the release, like leading up to midnight, like 11 o'clock before. I'm like, what if the song's not there? I'm like, what if like just like, you hype all this up. I'm like, what if you like open Spotify and it's like, huh, just kidding. But anyway, so that's always my stress leading up to it. But it was there. It was fully there at midnight. It's a silly stress, but it's exciting. It's such an interesting way, in a unique way, to get to connect with people. And I don't know. It's cool. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, as an aside, I actually listened to that interview that you did with Celine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she seems like a cool person. I've actually
Yeah.
reached out to her to do this show and to meet, but so far she hasn't responded yet.
She's busy. She's not so much she's been doing real so she started kind of going into the sport, well not started. She's been, working kind of between the country music world and the sports world a few like for the
No.
last couple of years. And so she just moved out across Canada and is really doing well in the sports world. So she is a busy gal as well. This was our little trip together when she came with us. We are like, oh my God, when are we going to see each other again after this? Because both of us are now just kind of doing completely separate things. But it's cool. Yeah. It's just in general, like the people, her included, but it's like yourself, like the people, like the other people like that you write songs with, or artists that you get to play shows with, or people you do interviews with. It's such a unique and fun way to get to connect with people kind of across the world, really, and get to know one another and support one another too. Like there is like a genuine support. So
Yeah. So you've mentioned listening and singing along to songs in the car.
yeah.
Um, I'm sure you know that saw that show, right? Carpool Karaoke.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. Just I have I have a story about that in that
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
last year I learned how to no, it was not last year, it was like 2 or 3 years ago I learned how to drive. Uh,
Okay, cool.
I got my license, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But one thing I learned is that you never take your hands off the wheel when the car is moving. And
Yeah.
when I watched that show again with those episodes, I noticed that, James Corden seems to take his
Hands
hands off
up.
the wheel a lot.
Yeah.
And then shortly after, there's this expose showing that the car is not actually driven by James
Oh, but they
Corden. It was
sit
like pulled,
there.
yeah, it was like pulled by a trailer or something. And I wasn't surprised because because
Yeah.
I'm
And that makes
sure
sense.
safety measures should be put in place because
Totally.
there's James and there's the biggest
All those
celebrity of that
celebrities,
time.
whoever comes in to do the singing. That is so funny. I've literally never even thought about that. That's hilarious. Now I'm thinking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, do I take my hands off the wheel when I drive when I'm singing? I shouldn't. Maybe subconsciously. I don't know. Maybe that's a thought I should keep inside.
Yeah, and I wonder, do you do that at all? Like either by yourself or when people are in the car with
Oh,
you?
I don't know now. Now I have to like I get really into I always joke and I love driving with my friends because my friends are just so like used to it. I should have been like used to this, huh? But used to me at this point and we always like no matter if I'm in the car by myself or with like my brother or friends, whoever, it is a full-on concert. Like we are performing a
Mhm.
show in that car. And now I'm like, do I do that? I definitely get really into it sometimes. I know like to the point where like people at stoplights like stare and I'm like, hope you're having a good day. But then I love too, like I think it's such a nice like human moment though, because most of the time like people like smile, like give you a thumbs up or like kind of jam with you. And if they don't, then I don't know, they need to learn to have more fun. But I think it's such like I love when I'm driving and I see people just like belting their hearts out. And I'm like, yes, you live your best life, and I hope you are singing your favorite song right now.
It's wonderful. Yeah, so you mentioned having a busy summer ahead, and I'm sure one of the items on the agenda is your upcoming performance at the North of Nowhere Festival at Lindsay, Ontario. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
I believe you were voted in as part of the, I guess, newcomers showcase, and
Yes.
I'm proud to say that I've contributed a few votes
Thank
on
you.
that.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, that was kind of stressful, I'm not gonna lie. I have been a part of quite a few of like, the voting emerging artist contests, and they can get stressful because voting it's there's a tricky thing where I don't know if I'm sure other artists probably feel the same way. Like I feel like I'm not the only person that probably feels this way. But sometimes it's like there feels like a fine line of like how much you want to ask people to vote for you and like sometimes you get in your head a little bit and be like am I asking too much? But and then last year I was in a voting one for Lucknow's Music in the Fields and kind of the same thing, but they did that one a little bit differently. That one was narrowed down to like six, like they just like it was a video submission process, and it was they chose their six finalists, and so then it was a vote from there. But for this one, because it was the brackets in each round, I was like, oh my goodness. But it was so nice. honestly, and there were so many people that I was like, oh, I feel like I'm asking too much, and they're like, please ask more. And so I felt very supported throughout it. And to get down, the festival mentioned that I think there was like over 200 applicants or something like crazy. And so to get like even to start, I didn't know that part until a couple weeks ago when we were doing something for the festival. And to even like make the top 64 at that point, like hearing those numbers, I was like, oh my gosh, I should have just been. And I was, of course, but like in like the grand scheme of things, when you hear that, like just even to make that first round of 64 was like amazing. And then, to narrow it down to, I guess there's 8 of us, 6 of us. I think there's 8. Now I've confused my numbers of what competition. I think it's 8, top 8. Either way, either way, it's been nice. Yeah, it is. It's been really nice to get to connect with the other finalists. And I don't know, like it's cool. It's a very rewarding feeling in a sense when it's like a voting one, because like you can feel, you see the support, like it's there, you see the support and you feel the support, and it kind of is a little bit of a motivation to keep going sometimes too, to know that like you have people in your corner and people want to see you succeeding, because it's really easy in this industry to get in your head and start doubting yourself and doubting what you're doing. And so yeah, that will be really fun. And just like in general with that lineup, I have so many friends and so many people that I've done music with for so many years now playing, and like a lot of the musicians are going to be there. So it's just going to be a really great weekend to celebrate Canadian country music, because it's a full Canadian lineup, which is incredible to see as well. And so um yeah, really, really cool to get to be a part of this festival, A, because it's an all Canadian country festival. And then two, or B, just to see the growth of this festival and where it started and get to be a part of that growth is very exciting. And so, yeah, I'm excited for that one. I guess it's like less than a month away now, July 19th. So not too far.
Yeah. I'll be back in my home country of Vietnam around that time. So
Nice.
unfortunately, I won't be there, but I
That's
wish you the
okay.
best of luck.
There'll be lots of content. Thank you.
Okay. So final question. I wonder, in your experience of listening and performing in country music, uh,
Mhm.
what is that experience? What does country music in general teach you about relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I think what made me fall in love, I mean, I've always loved country music. It's been a part of me since I was so young. Like I don't remember listening to anything besides Disney Channel, but like when I think about what my parents played around the house, or when I think about what I listened to on the radio, it was country music. And so I don't feel like there's ever been this moment that I've known anything else. But my favorite artist is Taylor Swift. Like I love, love, love Taylor. And I remember the reason I fell in love with Taylor Swift so young, because I was 8 when she put out her first album, was the writing. Like just feeling like being a young girl, not going through heartbreak, obviously at 8 years old, but just listening to her country albums and feeling like I could relate to them, even when I hadn't been through those experiences. And I feel like the writing, and as I've grown up and, like gone to country festivals or gone to country shows or discovered new artists, discovered new songwriters, you just find such a peace. And this has been something that I always try to incorporate into my writing, and something that I've kept with me. But you find a piece of yourself and like a piece of your story in a country song in a way that like, I don't want to be like, you don't find that in any other genre. I'm sure people can find that in anything, but there's something uniquely like different about country music with that. And I don't know, that's just always been something that's drawn me in, is that when I think back to all the songs, that I've listened to as a kid, or songs that resonate with me the most, they are country songs. And then I think it's because I have like, I can find a piece of my story and a piece of my life in that. And so when I've been writing my songs, going through life and relationships and boys and like meeting people and, like learning about yourself, I always try to, take my story and what I've learned and put that into my writing, but then also kind of still fit that like reason I love country music of making it not broad, because broad's not the word that I'm looking for, but like, relatable, I guess, enough that if I were to send it to my friend and she'd be like, oh my God, like I've been through that too, kind of thing. And so that's been it for me. And like just, yeah, I guess like to summarize, country music, like just finding a piece of your story in country music. And I just, yeah, reflecting back, that's what's gotten me through life. And I don't know. I think it's a beautiful genre because of the songwriting. And, there's some really, really gorgeous country songs. And I don't mean like the top 40. I mean, the top 40 ones are great too for what, whatever you want to listen to. But when you look at some of these songwriters out there that are putting out these really heartfelt, like deep rooted country storytelling songs, is where I just think that's where people can find their story. And that's where it kind of brings everybody together. And why, even if people don't know, maybe why they love country music so much is because of the relatability in the lyrics.
Oh yeah, yeah. And one thing too is that it's a great leveler in people in that you don't have to be of a certain background to understand
Totally.
or enjoy it.
I agree with you on that. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a really, really, you're right. And like, because the storytelling is such an important aspect, it can bring people together in that sense where everyone's been through, no matter what or where you grew up or how you grew up, everyone's been through something. And if you can find a piece of your story, you can find a way to relate to other listeners in country music.
Well, of course, there will be more to come from Paige Rutledge, but for
Thank
now,
you.
thank you for joining the show.
Thank you for having me.